Hey everyone, this video will be pretty quick, but I just thought I'd give you a sneak peek at this new flight controller that BETAFPV sent me for testing. I like to build and tinker, so I'm always interested in new components, but new components are coming out all the time, so I don't usually make videos about them. But this one is kind of interesting. It combines some features that are not commonly used on all-in-one flight controllers, and it's got some really impressive specs. It's got an F7 processor. It's running BL Heli 32. It's rated for up to 6S, 35 amps per motor. It's got all the other features that you would typically expect, and it has this connector over here, which makes it plug and play with the DJI system. If you had a Nebula or a Vista and you plugged it in here, and if you had the DJI controller, then that would literally be it. You just wire up the motors, plug in the air unit, and that's it for the electronics. So that would make this super simple. I think people are going to be interested in that if it turns out to be good. I don't know if there's going to be any reliability issues. I hope not, because this looks like a really nice flight controller. The one I have is a pre-production sample, so it has not been announced yet at the time that I'm making this video. I just wanted to give you a good look at it before I stick it into a build. That's what I'm going to do next, and I'm going to combine it with these new 2004 17,000 kV motors on 6S. Should be pretty interesting. Here's an even closer look, and you can see that big old F722 sitting right in the middle, so they really had to play a bit of Tetris to fit all of the other components around it. That's why they usually use the F411s on these all-in-ones. You might be asking why that matters, and that is a fair question. Betaflight can run great on F4s if you set them up properly, but these are a lot faster. This one defaults to 216 megahertz. The F411s on most of these all-in-ones default to 96. So it means that you're going to be able to run 8K, 8K with RPM filtering, basically turn on anything you want in Betaflight and not have to worry about it. Here you can see it right next to the F4 35 amp 6S board that BETAFPV also makes. They're similar in a lot of respects. You want to see the other side, there you go. These two boards have the same voltage and current specifications, but check out how many additional capacitors there are on this board. And while we've got these two next to each other, I just want to point out one more thing. Check out the motor pads on this one. This is what a lot of the all-in-ones look like, where the motor pads are right next to each other with tiny little gaps between them. And it's just kind of a pain to solder these things up because it's so easy to get a bridge of solder across the two, and then you kind of have to take off both wires and do it again. And even when you do it right, the gap is so small, it's kind of hard to visually look at them and know that you've done it right. Whereas this one, look what they've done. They've spaced out these pads. And as somebody who builds a lot, I really appreciate that. These tiny holes are to help you hook up a capacitor right on VBAT, and that's a good idea. That's much better than having it out at the end of the power lead in terms of electrical filtering. And then check out how big these holes are for the main power lead. Hopefully the traces inside are proportionally big, but I do want to clarify one thing. When people see an all-in-one, the current rating is per motor, but people often assume that that means that you could be pulling the maximum current from all four motors simultaneously, and I would kind of put an asterisk by that. This is a 35 amp board. If you were pulling 35 amps per motor, you'd be pulling 140 amps total current, and I think it's safe to say that that would fry this board. Even an XT60 would be in danger of overheating at that point. For reference, I think you would need 12 gauge wire if you were building a drone that was really going to be pulling 140 amps total. That is not what this board is, but hopefully it'll have plenty of headroom. I don't think I would use anything bigger than 16 gauge wire because I'm not going to be using anywhere near that amount in the drones that I would put this in, but you could actually put 14 gauge wire through those holes if you wanted to. Now these pads on top are still pretty tiny. You'll need a fine tip soldering iron to get in there, but only if you're using analog video. Again, the DJI system is going to plug in over here. This is for your video, in-video transmitter, LEDs over here. There's also a TX pad over here for smart audio. This side has 3 RX pads, 3 TX pads, buzzer pads. There's multiple 5-volt pads over here and one over here, so lots of options how to hook things up. And finally, here is the weight. Just over 8 grams, and for comparison, this is the F4 version of the 35 amp 6S board, 7.12. So I'm going to put this in a build real soon, and you know I'm going to push it hard, so hopefully it'll hold up. Hopefully I'll have some cool flight footage to show in the future. I'm going to have to wait until they announce this board before I release this video, but by the time you're watching it, it should be out. So if you want to look down in the video description, I'll put my link down there. You can see the product page and the full pinout and all that stuff on there if you want. That's it for now. If this kind of information is interesting and helpful to you, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.